Incremental routines. So let's continue with the advantages of incremental routing. Now it's time for the generalization, the bridge from facts to expertise. What makes an expert? So you think that an expert is someone who has a lot of experience. But then, not just because you accumulate a lot of experience, you become an expert. Meaning that an expert has some degree of expertise, do things right or efficient. By accumulating experience, not necessarily. So experts possess enormous knowledge in their field. And more importantly, experts are great generalizators on their field. Outside of their field, no, that's not applicable. So in the sea of facts becomes an ocean of wisdom when guided by insight. So what happens, let's say in my case, it will be very meta and it will be Supermemo. So I am an expert in Supermemo and in incremental reading. So therefore, I possess an enormous knowledge in the field of Supermemo. And consequently, I have a great capacity to make generalizations in Supermemo. Because the mental models are crystal clear for me. What about quantity to quality? Generalization converts large amounts of disjoint knowledge into highly useful expertise. Exactly. That's why if you only cram, you will not get there. Not because you have crammed many hours in your life, you will be an expert. Necessarily. Okay. So then, you have a lot of knowledge here and there in different places, different sources, articles. In the case of Supermemo, will be a lot more limited because the sources most likely come from one Supermemo Wikipedia page or web page or an article or from some users. Some blogs or discussions in the community, and there's not that much variety in this case. So the field I have chosen perhaps is not the best case, but you get what I mean, if it's mathematics or whatever. Then, generalization converts a lot of noise from disjoint knowledge here and there and makes highly useful expertise. Something that makes sense, it's simple, and it's applicable. Then, sometimes experts can immediately explain how they know something. Experience has trained their intuition. Exactly. It's like a pattern that, hey, I have seen this thing again already. Or something that is, I will classify as the same thing, even though it's something slightly different, it follows this pattern, or this thing, this reason. Like when I see a new person who hires me as a tutor, is, yeah, this kind of profile I have seen. Obviously, it won't be the same. Everyone is unique. But, oh yeah, the person who has tried Supermemo often non-tried and give up even five times and so on, but really wants to do incremental reading because perceives the value. But it always gives up because of the degree of difficulty, the learning curve, the friction, all of that. So I put that, it's an example of one profile. Oh yeah, this is different, this thing, or but you know what I mean? And sometimes I cannot tell you why I know that. Not yet. We'll know why. Then we will explain how this better later on. Then, generalization is knowledge in action. Intuition built on mountains of data. In my case, because I have seen hundreds of people one-on-one, so with a meeting, with a video call, one-on-one, through text, I could say in the thousands, and in many different places. So based on this data, I make some generalization on that knowledge. Then, rich factual foundations. Generalizations feed on rich factual knowledge. Factual, that's the keyword. Repeated exposure, seeing hundreds of niches, refines one's ability to identify patterns. Like in my case, I see people complaining in the Discord community or in Reddit, or people who didn't try Supermemo, but they express their conceived idea, the prejudice, and you start really noticing a pattern. Patterns reveal themselves only to the eyes that have been enough examples. Like in a physician, that hey, those symptoms are very common, doesn't tell me anything, but this sequence or this combination of other symptoms, hey, I have seen other people before during my service. And the longer I have been a doctor, the more likely I can have more generalizations because I have more examples, more opportunities, more data to identify patterns. Some generalizations rely on statistical or probabilistic thinking. Experts use mental decision tree to estimate probabilities and conclusions. Like, for instance, a medicine is not guaranteed, but hey, you are, for in my case, you are 25, you have this symptom, this other symptom. Oh yeah, perhaps it's this disease. I'm not going to mention the disease. This thing, but oh, it makes sense, but it will be an extreme outlier because this usually is from elderly, and you are 25. Even though it says, the documentation says, that yeah, 99% of the cases are old people, but there's 0 point something that happens with young people. It's one example that you will use generalizations based on the statistical probability. Then yeah, I found 1 to 3, let's say. Okay, you say you have tried Supermemo, okay, it's very likely, boom. I'm making these assumptions because it's very likely that those assumptions are true because I have seen these multiple times. And then I can fine tune, the more information I know, and the more expertise I build, then now I have subcategories in my archetypal profiles. And you keep nesting that. The more information you know, you fine tune that. So numbers guide your instincts. The mind weights odds to shape judgments. So at the end of the day, an expert will do heuristics, generalization. That doesn't mean it's correct or correct more often. It's quicker to do. And it's based on generalization. But since he's an expert, he will also very quickly and prematurely, precocely, identify that, hey, that's not the case. It doesn't follow the pattern. Or it followed the pattern until here. Then it's something else. If this symptom doesn't make sense, it's another disease. This kind of thing. Model building. Good modelers grasp high-level principles. Evolution, climate change, through simple yet powerful generalizations. Exactly. Sometimes, let's compare a person who is not a good modeler, mental models, they won't see these high-level, very abstract principles. Are not that tangible in that sense. With incremental reading, you will get better at that. It's a skill that if you, for whatever reason, let's pretend you are very bad at this, you will get better. It's part of the incremental reading. So just as what we have seen before in training, it's a skill you get exposure to. So you will improve it. Then, alternatively, complex decision trees integrate thousands of facts to support or disprove a thesis. Exactly. Based on the accumulation of your knowledge in that field. Each fact is a leaf. The model is vast tree of understanding. Exactly. So you can add more leaves to that tree, and in the thousands, and then because you are an expert, you have been on the field for decades, then the tree is vast in size. It's vast in size, but since it's everything about understanding that makes sense, you have understood that and you connected with the knowledge you already had, it's vast, but in a good condition. It's well distributed, well accessible, easily retrievable. So it's not just that it's vast, the size, and that's it. It's very big and everything in good condition. It's an important detail. Then, why generalization matters? Generalization underpins expert intuition. It's how doctors, as I mentioned, scientists, and our professionals make quick, accurate calls, heuristics. It translates data. It translates dense data into meaningful predictions and informed decisions. That doesn't mean it will be correct. It will be correct most of the time, or probabilistically is the most likely, but not guaranteed necessarily. Sometimes, for instance, for an example from this week, someone in the Anki forums said that, hey, I only have 60 megabytes with nodes with one add-on that shows you the size of the nodes. How come my collection is 240 megabytes? It's a lot more than that. Is well, most likely, was not the case. My intuition failed, but my informed decision was, well, it's likely that you have a lot of deleted stuff, because he had more than 100,000 flashcards with just a few months. That means he imported a lot of stuff that he didn't create. If you import and delete, you create in a table called graves. Or perhaps you imported decks from other people who had a lot of repetitions, a lot of reviews. And in the ref log, you have a lot of repetitions there that make a lot of size. It's a very nice example, very concrete example, but I want to share it because it's genuine from this week. But it's this thing. It was an informed decision, because I have seen this already. And people usually don't know that when you delete flashcards, you delete the cards, the notes, but not the reviews. So usually that's the case. But in that case, it was from something else, the reason. But that was very unlikely to be that case, because you need to use add-ons, so it's not a vanilla experience. Then, when knowledge coalesce, when knowledge coalesces into general rules, expertise becomes second nature. So, when knowledge grows together, more or less, into general rules, expertise becomes second nature. You have more knowledge, you accumulate that knowledge because you use incremental reading. Then, with this increased knowledge with time, you can also increase the general rules. And this expertise that builds, let's say, as a consequence, it becomes second nature. I don't have to make any effort. It's like it becomes part of me as a side effect. So to wrap up everything I have said, expertise is both breadth of knowledge and depth of knowledge. Is breadth of knowledge and depth of generalization. We are now redefining expertise in opposition to what we have said at the beginning, the first slide. So if I spend a lot of time, so I accumulate experience, but I keep forgetting because I don't use incremental reading or an efficient method, and therefore I also don't get depth in generalization. I'm an expert. I just accumulated experience, that's it. Then, cultivating robust factual foundations and learning to see patterns Cultivating robust factual foundations and learning to see patterns transforms raw information into an actionable wisdom. Knowledge that becomes like the top level, becomes wisdom, part of you already. And is actionable, applicable, retrievable. You can use it. That's the key. From countless facts to intuitive leaps, generalization is the expert's hidden engine. So basically, to wrap up, is people who want to hire me as a tutor for incremental reading or Supermemo, it's just for this. Because I had countless facts of intuitive leaps, I have spent a lot of hours trying Supermemo, trial and failure, iterations and iterations. And my depth of knowledge about Supermemo is high, and also the depth of generalization. Hey, I have this goal. I want to do this in Supermemo. That perhaps I didn't do this explicitly. Oh yeah, based on the generalizations, your requirements, your pain points, and so on. Hey, I can make this path for you. I know how you can achieve it. Perhaps there's more than one solution. Here you go. Choose the one you want. You want. So at the end of the day, this actual knowledge that I can use it to help you is because what? The power of generalization that I acquire through incremental reading. In this case, meta. And because I really like it. It's intrinsically fun for me. The video we have done before. Fun. I also like not just this meta, I also like doing it. So tutoring other people, for me, it's fun as well. I enjoy it. That's why sometimes is, oh man, I wish there was more people. I run out of tutorees because it's way too niche. But you get my point. This is unbelievable. And you put this on top of the other things we have seen, the speed, the consolidation, the stresslessness, the consistency, the creativity boost, overcoming the understanding, the high retention, the lifetime memories, the massive learning, the deep reflection. It's a win-win. In almost 20 different dimensions, incremental reading wins. In the long term, even more. But there are some disadvantages. And there are only 4 disadvantages. Here you go. That at the beginning is frustration, opportunity and overhead costs, and the capacity to learn garbage, like trivia. But that's all for now. See you incrementally.